All right, we've got another expert stack for you guys today, and our topic is breath work. And when I say stacked, I mean stacked. We've got Anahata Ananda, Nicolai Engelbrecht, Niraj Naik, and Travis Steffen. So let me tell you a little bit about each of them. Anahata Ananda is absolutely amazing. You may have seen her on my Instagram if you follow me there recently, before I brought a retreat to her studio called Shine Sedona in Sedona to do breath work. She's been trained in many shamanic traditions. She's been doing healing work for a very long time. And she's also a high performance coach, and she's just absolutely incredible. So her shamangelic breath work, signature breath work at Shine is just, I mean, it is just at another level. So powerful what my group that I brought there experienced. So grateful for her. And she's such an incredible teacher. So we're going to kick off the episode with her. You can check out that entire episode if you would like by clicking the link in the show notes. And then our next guest is Nicolai Engelbrecht, my friend from out in Iceland. He is just an absolute expert breathwork facilitator, works with, very high level private clientele. I won't say more than that. Just has an incredible story. He has a book called, I think it's Gangsters and Gurus. Sorry, I have the book. What is it called? Gangsters and Gurus? Yeah, Gangsters and Gurus. He has the most insanely crazy story. His life is like a movie. And yeah, he's just, the breath work is his thing. He's very good at it. So we're going to hear from him. And then we're going to hear from Niraj Naik. So he's the founder of Soma Breath. And he's just so amazing. He's affecting millions of lives. He's an author with Mind Valley. He's a big time speaker. I've seen him at many events. He's absolutely incredible. So we're going to hear from him, and then we will hear from Travis Steffens. Travis is a conscious capitalist who had a real estate company that was doing quite well, that he actually brought in and rehabilitated homeless people in his company. And through that rehabilitation process, to have them be employees, he was using breath work a lot because he's a huge fan. And so he created this app for them, which he ultimately ended up making public. And that is now the Breath Source app. And it's just has so many of the top breathwork people in the world. It's so incredible. And breathwork is just such an important part of his journey and helping others heal as well. So we're going to hear from him last. So let's go ahead and get into it. Here is our breathwork expert stack.
For me, breath work has been, in terms of what I think people are seeking, like getting these old patterns that they know are just kind of stuck in their body or their energy body. They know it, and they can see it and they can feel it, but they don't know how to get it out. For me, it's just breath work just helps me release it feels like from a body sense. I'm just different. I get it now. I get it now, which has been a lot of my psychedelic journeys. I've had moments like that, but in terms of legal issues, in terms of issues happening, problems happening, mental health stuff, and
it's real
medications people are on, all these, traumas, and they're in this really highly uncomfortable state and they don't know how to get out of it. Whereas breathwork, you can just stop doing the breath work and just chill for a minute and cry or whatever. You don't even have to start back up if you don't want to. So I love it, and that's why I'm breath work will never not be part of my retreats now, and I'm so excited that they get to come do it with you this year, because you've been doing it so long and you're so good at what you do. And so for the sake of the podcast, I'm wondering if you can share, probably people listening might range from maybe they're a breathwork facilitator or all the way to somebody that's what?
Yeah.
Or they might have maybe tried one technique for a minute, you know what I mean? But can you talk about breathwork and what it is and what it can do?
Yeah. First of all, breath is life force. So when we have a trauma or a betrayal or something that takes our breath away, it can get stuck in the visceral tissues, in the body. We can have cellular memory of a breakup, of betrayal, of a trauma, physical, sexual abuse, or just feeling like I don't fit in and I'm not enough or I'm not good enough. It doesn't have to be of physical, sexual, or energetic trauma. It can just be externalizing the judgment and criticism of other people or society, or just the comparisonitis of I'm not blank enough or I'm too blank. Right. And that can contract our energy field, or my voice isn't safe, or my truth is not welcome, or my emotional expression is making other people feel comfortable. There's a whole lot of reasons, from little to big to this isn't that little when it's just once, but it sure turns out to be a big thing when I have this happen 100 times. And so we all have these different contractions or distortions, blocks, inadequacies, limiting beliefs, heartbreak, unworthiness. Like we all have these different things in our energy field. Some of them are somatically held in our physical tissues, like the weight of our relatives and their expectations on our shoulders, as an example, or different traumas that are held in the body. But it's also held in the emotions. Watery emotions tend to be more like grief and sadness that maybe haven't had a safe, healthy, loving outlet for. Or when there is something that is dissonant or hurtful or painful and we don't feel safe and it doesn't feel right, it's not uncommon to feel anger, which turns to resentment, but then turns to rage when it's not dealt with. And when you're oppressing those things, or that energy is locked in the body, really common for codependent relationships, as well as health problems, in addition to addiction issues, whether that's workaholic or eating disorders. All of these different things are a correlation of some kind of dissonance, And for whatever reason, I love the opportunity to hold space and be the explorer, to say, how can I help you uncover the dissonance? How can I help you realign that dissonance? And I found one of the most efficient tools for that discovery and realignment, that release, and then the reclamation, or the remembering, or the retrieval of the authentic true self can come through breathing exercises. And I don't mean like the yoga breathing that just helps us to maybe relax or calm the mind.
Or energize.
Yeah, or energize, different types of things. Well, this is more what I call shamanic breath work, where the breath is designed, it's a pretty quick, deep pace, and it's designed to be that spark where that density that's held in the tissues or in the emotions or in the energy body or in the subconscious brain, as you start breathing intensely and oxygenating these parts of your body, these things start to rise. And if there is a safe space and a skilled practitioner, because not all practitioners are skilled, and that's one of the reasons why I do the training, is to put skilled practitioners out there into the world so that they are trauma informed of how to move into somebody's energy field and support them through that process of release or grief or rage or sadness, or insecurity or unworthiness, and how to move in with incredible integrity, immense compassion, and a level of range that allows you to tailor the breathwork experience and the support. If one person might need to cry it out and somebody else is finally free from a relationship they're letting go of, or they're reclaiming a part of their sexual sovereignty that got distorted in some experiences, or they find their voice again, to be able to have the range and the depth and the care and the presence to tailor the journey.
One of my favorite releases, it was like one of my favorite releases I've ever been like the recipient, like I felt so lucky to, be in that space. But it was like one of our participants, she has a very demanding work life. Like it's a lot of serious business, she's moving, big ponds all the time. Like it's a lot of
pressure.
intensity. And she laughed. She had the most contagious laugh. None of us could stop laughing with her. And it was so beautiful to see that. And then we had a woman in grief and she just let out the biggest belly, deep from her belly sobs, and it just made me cry, and it was it's so beautiful. And that's another thing is like, I think sometimes, it's like when you first go to yoga and they're like, take a deep breath, and you like, don't want anyone to hear you breathing. You're like, and I think like sometimes people can have fear of that, but I think that's why breath work is so beautiful. Because I mean, sure, you could still have the fear and like maybe work your way into it, but for the most part, like you're not really like totally running the show with so much control as usual. Like you're in this space where you're just like, I need to do what I need to do, and it's so freeing. And rage for women, I'm like, I'm gonna send every woman here because it's really hard to access like anger and rage for a lot of women, and they do exactly that survival mechanism of, well, like, no, he's not perfect. He wasn't, he had I forgive him. And like you can tell when that hasn't
and what that
released.
is doing is just being the people pleaser and the accommodator at the expense of self. And that there's a cost to that. And that doesn't mean that we can't honor, okay, that's the best they could do, or they did make a mistake and they said they were so. That is all may be true, but my feelings about it are also true and also matter. And your grief matters. Like we're such a culture that is like, get over it already, and that doesn't really honor grief, or just, it's breakup, just hey, hop on the next dating app, swipe and let's go. And doesn't allow us to be present with our emotions, which are very intelligent. As a human, like sadness means you're experiencing life, and loss happens. Things we want to go this way went this way. Things we want to go longer are cut short. We have the right to have a feeling about it. And when things are pulled from us, when it doesn't feel right, when we got betrayed, when somebody, like the situation isn't what we thought it was, and we have the right to be angry as well. And in breathwork, it's a safer place for that anger than in your relationship unchecked after a few drinks. Because then I guarantee that rage, that anger is going to start to come out and be aggressive, or it's going to be internalized, and then we've got a cancer situation. And so this is about letting that release valve out. And sometimes what we need is just, when we're so serious, sometimes we just need our inner child to play and have some fun. Sometimes we've been trapped in these kind of oppressive relationships or jobs that maybe we didn't choose from a place of empoweredness, or it used to fit, but it doesn't fit us anymore, or we're choosing it to not disappoint someone else. And so we can feel kind of trapped and resentful in that. And sometimes in breathwork, I see the most like, yippee, like, freedom. Oh, finally, I can choose my happiness over this unhealthy, shitty career. And it's like, yes, you can. And there's plenty of life left to start a new chapter. There's plenty of life left to reset and unchoose something that isn't in alignment, that maybe was, or you didn't know that it wasn't until you figured out, okay, maybe I think this isn't safe, or it isn't healthy, or I'm just over it. I think it's coming to completion. Then there is this epiphany and wake-up call. And what I think, one of my favorite things that happens in breathwork is not only all this release, but radical clarity. Well, if that's not it, what are you putting in its place, and where are you going next? I think radical clarity and soul insight, because now the brain isn't clogged with all these limiting beliefs, and you've taken the emotional trash out. So now there's all this space to create, to allow inspiration, which is just to let spirit in. Inspiration in spiritus means, can I make space for spirit to help guide me, whether that's your intuition or your soul, or your great grandma that's on the other side, or your divine counsel, or Jesus, or whoever. There can be this openness now to access divine guidance, or a higher power, or higher consciousness, or as you like to say, right, your soul, your soul wisdom, and that soul connection. Because then that can start guiding you instead of everybody else.
Exactly.
Or fears, doubts, limitations guiding you. And I just feel that on the journey of transformation, that is a game changer. And like when you get back into the driver's seat of your own life again.
All right, there is our excerpt from Anahata Ananda. If you'd like to hear that full episode, that's episode 214. It's called Breathwork and the Roadmap to Transformation, and the link to it is in the show notes. Now we are going to transition over to Nicolai Engelbrecht and hear some awesomeness from him.
There is no other energy source that is more vital than the breath, of course. So when we look at it from that perspective, it is what is keeping us alive as human beings.
Right.
Usually we speak about food, we speak about exercise, we speak about mindset, we speak about all of these other things. But then the most important source is not even mentioned. Like if you look at most like a pyramid of happiness or whatever, there's nothing about the breath there. But the way I work with the breath personally is a combination, of course, depending on the client and depending on what they need. I do a lot of addiction programs with people who have like very heavy and severe addictions with Xanax and all of this kind of popular, let's call them popular drugs these days. So what we can see is like after just 30 days of practicing different breathing techniques, that client will stop. Like they'll literally temper out of like heavy medication that they have been on for years, like for 10 years, 15 years of their life. And they can tamper out within like 30 to 60 days. Of course, with the help of other people, like nutritionists and stuff like that. It's like, of course, everything has to be together.
Yeah.
But the breath is kind of like a gateway where we can go beyond the mind. So a lot of the time we just look at the mind of like, what did you feel when you were 15? Which is also good. It's also an important part of a process. But it's not the only part. So there is also the somatic experience of where is the trauma stored in the body? How do you get access to that trauma? And that is what we can do directly through the breath, like bypassing the mind, going straight into the trauma. And then on an even, I would say like more advanced level, we can go into the same kind of experiences that we go into with DMT, that we go into with ayahuasca. Like we can go into a mind-altering state and deeper states of meditations, of course. But it does require more than like DMT is like 5 minutes, you're straight in, you're straight out. Most people have no idea what they actually experience. They're just like, oh my God, this is really intense. And with the breath work, it might take you 5 days, it might take you 5 years.
But
When you know what you're going into, you're like, oh, okay, this is the space.
I know a lot of people, when I tell them about my breathwork experiences, they're like, I'm telling them how I'm breathing. I'm kind of exemplifying it. And they're like, I don't think I could do that for an hour. Can you speak on that? Because I'm like, I know, I didn't think I was going to be able to either. Can you speak on that? Have you ever seen anybody like not be able to do it?
No.
Okay.
I have had some people where they were really, where they had like really severe lung disease, where it was where it could be too intense. So they could only do like a slower and like they wouldn't be like, they wouldn't be able to do that for a long time, but only because of like a fitness, you could say like a physical kind of
specific issue, right?
Exactly.
But
I think once you go into it, you kind of lose also the concept of time, and you lose the concept of like how long are you actually doing it for. At least if it's guided in the right way, you should just be kind of in a trance state, which we always have been able to go into as human beings. A lot of people have forgotten it in our comfy lifestyle with Uber Eats and with all these different things at the doctor, but we used to always go into these kind of things, right? So I have never really experienced people who couldn't do it. I have seen people who weren't willing to go into the sadness. So like the second the sadness or the anger came, they would stop. Of course, I've met those people that it's just like, no, not ready, which is fine. And it's fair enough to do that also if you ever are in a breathwork session and you feel like, okay, this is too much. Because of course you shouldn't necessarily force yourself if you don't feel safe. But now, I mean, I have taken thousands of people through breathwork courses, right? And like from everything from CEOs to big dudes with tattoos in their face inside prisons to like anyone, right? And it's so beautiful to see that once you go through the sessions, everyone usually comes out with the same feeling afterwards, which is like a deeper sense of peace, deeper sense of calmness, nervous system that feels more balanced.
Yeah.
And once people have experienced that, that is, at least for most people, that is more addictive than any kind of substance that you could take for it.
Yeah.
Like
I'll take
any,
I'll take nervous system regulation and coherence and being comfortable with feeling my emotions and tapped into the universe over Xanax any day. All right. That wraps up our excerpt from Nicolai Engelbrecht. That's episode 156. It's called Healthy Masculine, the Ego, and More with Spiritual Advisor. If you'd like to listen to that entire episode, you can hit the link in the show notes. And now we will move into our excerpt from Niraj Naik.
For me, with my experience in breath, now I haven't done your technique, which I definitely want to. I'm very excited to try it. But just from holotropic breath workshops that I've gone to, or when I was at Rhythmia doing ayahuasca, Christian Minson there taught, he calls it transformational breath work. So I've done some different types of breath work, and there is something wildly emotionally healing about breath work. It's for me, it's like a roadblock remover. So I've had many plant medicine journeys, many psychedelic journeys. Those are also roadblock removers. They open you up. But there's something I noticed so specifically about the breath, that it's like the things that I don't want to deal with, these like little emotional things that I'm not seeing, I just get taught immediately. This is the stuff that you're not seeing. This is these are your blind spots. That's what I feel like happens to me. And once I see them, it's kind of like a monster in the closet thing. Like you're a little kid and you see this monster in the closet and you flip the light on and it's just like your hockey stick in your jacket or whatever. Like that. That's what breath work feels like to me when I process things. It's like, oh, it's just a hockey stick. Got it. You know, it's just this wildly healing thing. And I usually cry. I usually bawl. I mean, I always do. I bawl my eyes out. It's just wildly healing. And for me, I feel that space of healing. I feel that space. I'm on level 10 billion afterwards. I am just like, I get it. I see it. Wow. I feel so centered and grounded. And so I just wanted to hear a little bit more about your process, what you're doing with people. I know that you're doing the music, but you're doing events. Can you talk a little bit more about what exactly you do, how you're integrating the pranayama? Like, what does this look like? And then, how people can find you.
Brilliant. Yeah. Great question. So there is all these different types of breath work. Like, so breath work is like an umbrella word for various different styles. But originally it was more known for holotropic rebirthing. That's kind of what made the name of breath work. But, now it's kind of like pranayama is classed under breath work, and, even sometimes qigong is and things like that. So first, you're going to make a distinction from those different styles. So basically, holotropic was made by Stanislav Grof because he was trying to find a alternative to LSD, because he was one of the first psychotherapists to use LSD, and then he got banned and he wanted a replacement. And he found that this kind of breathing, intense breathing, kind of it creates hallucinogenic effects in people, which was also therapeutic. It kind of had a multifaceted effect. So he started using that and wrote lots of books about it and all that. And then rebirthing kind of came out about the same time. It's pretty much the same technique, but he put a different twist on it. He said he got it from an immortal Babaji, Leonard Orr, called Babaji, an immortal yogi called Babaji, who lives for thousands of years, who gave him this technique. Wow. And it's a technique of immortality. Huge claims, but still, it's got a lot of people using it. It's very popular. It obviously works and helps for what it's intended for, which is like a psychotherapeutic tool.
Right.
And it kind of helps release emotional traumas and stress in the body. So pranayama is different. Pranayama is more like a library of different techniques. So with pranayama, it's like a pharmacy of different techniques. So you got stuff and each one actually taps into the autonomic nervous system. So you either lowering blood pressure, heart rate, or you can speed up heart rate, raise blood pressure. You can increase your body temperature. You can cool your body down. You can increase oxygen supply to the muscles. You can get into altered states of consciousness. So there's different types of techniques for different uses.
Interesting.
Even ones that flush the lymphatic system, help you drain.
And this is just through through different breathing techniques. You can
different breathing techniques and a few different ways of using energy locks, certain asana, like postures you'd use. It enhances the whole thing. Because yoga and pranayama really, they go, pranayama is a branch of yoga, so it goes together. It shouldn't be separate. In pranayama, actually, what you can do is you can slow the breathing. So they have techniques for that in pranayama as well. But you can also slow the breathing down, completely slow it down. And you can also train yourself. We all have a natural resting heart rate and breath rate, breathing rate. And actually, you can train yourself to be so efficient using oxygen that your natural resting breath rate goes right down. And there's a reason why this is important. Because like yoga and pranayama, they were developed by studying animals in nature. So if you observe animals in nature, okay, those animals that live a very long period of time, like elephants and turtles, they basically breathe very, very slow breathing rates, like 2 to 4 breaths per minute.
Wow.
Animals that actually don't live a very long time, like rats and mice, they breathe at like 20, 40 breaths per minute. And humans live around 70, 80 years. We actually have around 10 to 15 breaths per minute average, okay? But very, very healthy people have much slower breathing rates. And you'll notice people who are sick or have got disease, they breathe much faster and they pant. They breathe like that much more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is it because they're not as efficient at managing oxygen in their bodies? Is that whereas like healthy people are exercising more and they put their bodies in positions where there isn't as much oxygen or they're requiring more oxygen, so they just become more efficient at managing it?
There you go. You got it. So that's actually the mechanism of, and probably the goal of what I figured out for pranayama is to make you super efficient at using oxygen. So you need to breathe less. This brings your breathing rate down to like the speed of like elephants and turtles. And what the reason for doing this is because so science now shows the problem of oxygen. And there's a scientist called Helmut C, he's a professor, who coined the term oxidative stress. And he said, although it's very, very hard for humans to live without oxygen, if you stop breathing for several minutes, you're going to die. It's also very hard for humans to live with oxygen. The reason why is because oxygen is corrosive. It causes stress on the body. It's oxidizing. It burns things. It combusts. It creates fire. So we have like an inner fire going on all the time, which is in our mitochondria producing light, fire, ATP energy. All right. So oxygen actually makes us age. So the more efficient you are at using oxygen, the less you need to breathe, the less of the oxidative stress you get. And it also generally means that you are just healthier. Everything runs more efficiently as well. The less oxygen you need, the more adapted you are to having oxygen. Now, here's the other benefit of this. And it comes to this one technique in pranayama called kumbhaka. When you become very efficient using oxygen, you'll find that you can hold your breath for longer and longer periods of time. And another point of this is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is one of the most important gases in the body. We think that it's a waste gas, but it's actually one of the most important. The reason why is because carbon dioxide is essential to keep blood vessels dilated. And it works with another ingredient, a nitric oxide, which is an antioxidant, has many different uses. It's a vasodilator, and it helps get oxygen to the places it needs to go more efficiently. So nitric oxide is super important. Now, when you slow breathing right down, you produce more carbon dioxide, you have more nitric oxide. If you breathe very fast, you blow all the carbon dioxide out. This is why it changes the pH, right? But what makes us breathe again is carbon dioxide as well. So it's what triggers our brain to breathe again. So actually, if you can have a very high tolerance for carbon dioxide, meaning you can handle more your brain doesn't freak out, cause you to
Yeah.
breathe again. This has two amazing effects. Firstly, it means you can handle more calm. Like I said, you slow your breathing down. You don't need to breathe as often as well. But also what it means is that you can hold your breath for increasingly long periods of time, right? And it means you can go into these very deep meditative states. When you hold your breath with no air in the lungs, it's literally like pressing pause on your life, because life is just a series of inhales and exhales, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you hold your breath and you hold on, you exhale, you expire. You know, like what expire is another word for is death,
Die.
basically.
Yeah.
Die. But you switch off. It's like a defrag switch for your mind. So holding your breath on the exhale, the longer you can do it, the deeper and deeper into these depths of meditation you can get into.
All right, that wraps up our excerpt from Niraj Naik, and we will finish this off with our excerpt from Travis Steffens. If you want to listen to Niraj's entire episode, that's episode 34, so pretty early in the podcast. It's called The Renegade Pharmacist and Soma Breath Founder Shares Path to Healing. And if you want to listen to the rest of Travis's episode that you're about to hear an excerpt from, that is episode 202. So here is Travis.
Breath is life. It's the first thing we do when we enter the planet, and it's the last thing we do when we leave. And if you've ever watched a baby be born and it comes out and it takes its first gasp of breath, it's almost like you see the life enter this little physical form. And then if you've ever sat by the bedside of somebody who's passing away, they're always gasping for that breath. And breath truly is the source of all life. And the oxygen on this planet's 21.8%. It's perfect balance. It's not 21.9 or 21.7. It's 21.8%. And so when something is that finite and that in tune, and if you believe in consciousness at any level, or God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, our bodies are made of 99 to the 14th power of empty space. And so if empty space, being an oxygen molecule, meets empty space that is in the form of matter, that is talking to Tara, that Tara is observing Travis talking back to her, what's happening as we're breathing in this oxygen that's keeping us conscious and alive to have this interaction together. And what's in that molecule called O2 that is interacting with empty space and keeping this consciousness and this conversation alive. And so I have been on a self-development journey now for 16 years, and finding and knowing thyself, and oxygen has played a massive part in my transformation from not knowing myself to knowing myself and knowing what internally drives who I am.
Well, that's a good answer. Yeah. And I tell people often, most of my people know I'm a huge advocate of plant medicines done correctly. I know you've had experiences with plant medicines, and then also obviously like breath work is a huge part of your life. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, just start with a holotropic breath work workshop or some play off of that. Cause I'm like, honestly, like I would say it's equal, if not more powerful for me in terms of like emotional processing and seeing things that I wasn't seeing, or having these really powerful somatic shifts in my body where I'm like, I just get it now, And so, can you speak on some of the, self-discovery, like for somebody who's never tried, like a more extended breath work journey, right? Like, what would you say to them, if they ask, what do you get out of that? Like, what is it like? What do you take away from it? What would you say?
And I love that you said that you recommend holotropic breath work to them, because plant medicine has become a bit of a fad, and it's not something you should do because it's a fad. It's something you should do because you're called into it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to experience something that is, in my opinion, oftentimes more powerful than ayahuasca, because if I've seen many people go in that weren't ready for Aya, and they have no experience at all.
And they're scared. and they're resisting, and it was like horrible. Yeah, that happens for sure.
The shaman's up there shocking them and doing things to try to get them to absorb the iron and let go. And it just, it can or cannot be a beautiful journey. But with breath work, you're going in, and I don't care what, it's like you're let go or be dragged kind of a thing, but you can stop at any time. And that's what's cool. Is you can go back to a normal breath, and within seconds to minutes you're back in stasis.
Right.
And so holotropic breath work, or rebirthing, it's also called, or psychedelic breath work, allows you to, and I can get into the science of how it works if you want me to.
Yes, please.
Okay.
We have those types of people. We have the conscious and the science. I mean, I'm like that, so I think I probably attract a lot of those kind of people. So yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So in holotropic breath work, what's really interesting is that in your pineal gland, you carry a lot of dimethyltryptamine that's coded to your DNA. And in the base of your lungs, you have dimethyltryptamine that's coded to your DNA. And so when you access your own dimethyltryptamine that's coded to your own DNA, your spiritual journey is going to be wildly different than taking it from a root or 5-MeO-DMT or any of these other forms of dimethyltryptamine. And so dimethyltryptamine is designed to separate the soul from the body. So if Bob is driving down the road and gets into a head-on collision, every single near-death experience that I've ever read about, they're all the same in the fact that they have a cataclysmic event, and all of a sudden they're looking down at their body. And so 100,000 NDEs can't be wrong, right? So the dimethyltryptamine that's in the body is designed to separate the soul from the physical structure. And in Aya or these other medicines, there's certain doses that cause that to happen at a larger level, and you have a shaman there to keep you integrated with the physical form and things of that nature. But with breath, your dimethyltryptamine is accessed through breath, and it's accessed through hyperventilating at such a level that it causes your pH balance of your blood, your alkalinity, to raise at such a high level that it starts to actually shut the body down. Now I'm going to stop for a second there, and I'm going to go to the legend of Soma, I'm sure many of you have heard of Soma breath, Niraj Naik.
He was on the show.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Love Niraj. So he's on the app as well. And Niraj used the word Soma because of where its origin came from. And the origin and the legend of Soma is that the gods had an elixir, and they would drink this elixir. And when they would drink this elixir, it would allow them to have altered states of consciousness. And they ran out of this elixir. And so one of the gods was charged to find something that would be equally as powerful as this elixir. And so he comes back to the other gods and says, I figured it out, I found it. And it's breath. I can reach that altered state of consciousness through breath that we had in the elixir. And so they all got together and they made a promise to humans and to the, whatever you want to call it, the universal system, that you can never take life through breath, that breath can only ever give life. So I'm going to go back to the body shutting down. So when you go through this hyperventilating process, your alkalinity is raising 70, 80, 90, 100 basis points over alkaline, which is 7.2. And when you increase the body that many basis points, pretty much with anything, it's going to have a cataclysmic event. So the body starts to shut down. And when the body starts to shut down and yet you're fully conscious, your pineal gland starts to leak dimethyltryptamine because it's having a near-death experience, if you will. And then it starts to separate the soul from the body. And this is where the rebirthing can happen, because when we can take the ego out of the body and the body can be on its own, we're designed to live forever. We're designed to be whole. Our birthright is wholeness. It's not dis-ease. Dis-ease is a whole nother thing we can get into, but that birthright can be stepped into in an instant because it's all energy. So when we can remove and the disillusion of ego and all those things and have our dimethyltryptamine, not somebody else's, not some other plants, our dimethyltryptamine running through the body, which is the God molecule, we can experience massive transformation in a very short amount of time.
All right, that wraps up our expert stack on breath work. If you have another topic like this that you'd like us to pull people together on, that we've had multiple episodes about, or maybe one we haven't even done that topic yet, please let me know. You can DM me on Instagram or Facebook at Coach Tara Garrison. All right, thanks, guys.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Inside Out Health Podcast. I hope this episode served as inspiration and something that you needed to hear in your life. If you have a friend or family member that you think would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. And also, please subscribe. I have so many more amazing guests coming. I have just been so gifted and honored to meet so many incredible health professionals in my career, and I cannot wait to share their messages with you guys. So please subscribe. And if you could be so kind as to rate my show, I would really appreciate it. This podcast is honestly an intuitive call to me to help spread goodness to the world. And so if you guys can help me do that, I would really appreciate it. If you want more info on this guest, pop over to my website, check out my podcast section, and you can get links to everything we talked about in the show and find out more about this guest and where you can go from here. Make sure you're also following me on Instagram. That is my most active platform. You can find me at Coach Tara Garrison. You can also find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Everything is Coach Tara Garrison across the board. And then, if you want to send me a message, guys, and let me know other guests or other topics you want to hear on the show, please let me know. I am here to serve you. So would love to hear from you, would love your feedback on the show. And if you share any of these episodes, please tag me on social media. It's Coach Tara Garrison.